we're now live.
Hi and good afternoon, everybody. I'm Robbie Richmond from EasySAM, and here to introduce to you a modularized component of the Snow product suite called Snow Spend Optimizer. I'm joined by Tony from Snow, who'll run through a demo of the product and a little bit of the kind of positioning in a couple of minutes. First, I just wanted to introduce EasySAM to you. Some of you might be aware who we are. We are an independent SAM consultancy, which means that we don't have a vested interest in selling you licensing or driving a specific agenda, which I think is really important. We're very much focused on driving down costs for customers, so looking at optimizing renewals, identifying inactive Office 365 accounts, that kind of thing, the kind of activities that will really reduce the amount of money that companies spend on their software. We do know as well that there's a big risk around being audited, and we're certainly starting to see software audits rise as we come out of lockdown. Software vendors have been unable to do audits for probably the last 12 months, but we're starting to see an increase in their activities and obviously the associated costs and negative publicity that goes along with that. And also to look at how we can optimize your existing software licensing. So either through utilizing existing licenses more effectively, or even potentially to look at ways of regaining some of the value that you've spent on that software where that might be appropriate. These are some of the services that we offer. So everything from helping you to select the sort of software tool that's most appropriate to you, like the Snow Spend Optimizer product. We do a SAM MOT, so a health check, make sure that your software asset management processes and policies are delivering value for you. We have a Simplicity 365 service, which is focused on SaaS and Office 365, Adobe, Creative Cloud, etc. We do audit vendor baselines, where we look at software compliance for a single vendor, typically ahead of, say, a software renewal or a true-up. We do a full SAM managed service. We provide industry standard aligned training, so ITIL and ISO aligned training, and we can also help with the resale of surplus licenses. So if you have licenses that are not being used, we can help you get some value back for that. So if any of those are of interest, please let us know. And with that, I'm going to hand over to Tony Coughlin. So Tony will take us through the Snow product suite in quick overview, and then kind of where Spend Optimizer fits, and then a bit more detail on Spend Optimizer and a product demonstration. So Tony, over to you.
That's great. Thanks, Robbie. And good afternoon. Welcome to today's session, everyone. As Robbie said, I'm going to be taking you through Snow's newly aligned product technology suite, and today that's a focus specifically on Spend Optimizer. So I'm Tony Coughlin. I've been working in the solution consulting team at Snow for over 5 years now, and I've also been in the SAM industry for over 15 years. So today we're going to discuss a couple of things about why Snow's redefined their technology suite. What is Spend Optimizer? What value can it bring to your organization? I'll give a bit of a live demo of some of the options that I'll be talking about. We'll recap at the end with some use cases, and then we're going to do a little follow-up with a quick Q&A session as well. So if you've got any questions you want to put in the chat, we'll try and get to those at the end. Now, I know I mentioned this before on a previous session, but again, just to recap for any of those that were on that call, Snow's mission is to provide complete insight and manageability across all technology. So one thing you will notice in that mission statement is the use of all technology. So we've shifted away from just software now. And the reason for that kind of distinction is pretty straightforward. At Snow, we've seen the market shifting, and that's primarily due to a real growth, large growth in software as a service, infrastructure as a service, and platform as a service. And in turn, that's obviously changing the behavior of Snow's customers. And what we're also seeing is a kind of, as a result, a decentralization of IT, where business units, I'm sure within your organization, can almost kind of bypass IT if they need to and go and purchase the technology because they want to do things really quickly and they just want to do it now. So Snow's customers are now kind of searching for platforms that are capable of managing not just software, but hardware, SaaS, IaaS, and PaaS. So we call this Snow's Technology Intelligence Suite. And let's have a look at our market offering, which supports that vision. So the Snow platform consists of 4 product lines, which focus on values and business outcomes we believe that the solution can help your organization achieve. So those are visibility, optimization, governance, and then transformation. And then we have 6 products. We're talking about Spend Optimizer today. And Spend Optimizer, it's important to realize that Spend Optimizer builds out on the capabilities of Snow's adoption tracker, which is giving discovery, inventory, and normalization of assets, and with Spend Auditor, which is giving insights into what's driving technology spend and helps ensure that you're audit ready. Okay, so what is Spend Optimizer? Well, just for a bit of fun, analogy I like to use, and plus I really like fast cars, is Spend Optimizer works a bit like a wind tunnel. So it highlights and tells you about any likely inefficiencies and possible wastefulness that exists in your organization. And you wouldn't typically see this at first sight. And so Spend Optimizer gives you insights and recommendations on how you can improve things, such as identifying wasted spend on unused subscription-based licenses, for example, or how can you optimize your costly Windows server-based licensing. So I wanted to touch again on the power of Snow's data intelligence service. So Snow has the largest SAM database in the marketplace, and we're looking at being able to automatically normalize raw inventory data. So, all those executables, which are difficult to understand, we compare that to over 690,000 applications in our database from over 100,000 software vendors. And important to remember that those numbers are continually increasing as we add more and more titles on a daily basis. So we're normalizing that data and producing records with standard names and additions, so you can quickly see, which software titles you've got in use and by who. And it also includes things like, does the application require a license? Fundamentals. Have you purchased the rights to a suite of products or just a single application? Do you have automatic upgrade and downgrade rights with that purchase? Can I use that application cross-edition or cross-platform? Is it a subscription license? Et cetera, et cetera. So all this stuff is included within the data intelligence service itself. Now with Spend Optimizer, you also get augmented data such as end of life dates, end of support, and end of extended support dates against applications. And you also get application types. And application types is really powerful because that allows you to understand, well, what is this application designed to do? So rather than having just a list of stuff, which is normalized, brilliant, But what does that do? Well, when you can look at the application type, you can understand exactly what it's doing within your organization. And I'll show you what that looks like. Now, to put this into some context of the SAM market we're in, the worldwide growth in IT spend is just continuing to soar. And as I mentioned earlier, it's being driven by cloud, SaaS, and enterprise software. I suppose initially, we saw this being led by the likes of Salesforce, but now Microsoft, Oracle, SAP, you name it, they're all pushing their customers towards the cloud. And of that overall growth that you can see there, Gartner suggests that 30% of that cloud spend remains kind of untouched in your organization. And this is where Spend Optimizer can help, because it can shine a light on that 30% and provide the details to help you understand where you can really start saving your organization money. One thing to just quickly mention, actually, we also have some really helpful free resource tools on our website if you're interested. And those are things like software savings calculators, cloud saving calculators, SAP optimization, and also technology intelligence assessments. So they're all kind of aimed at helping you benchmark your organization and or calculate your likely savings. So feel free to have a look at those. So how does Spend Optimizer do what we've just talked about? Well, by building on Adoption Tracker and Spend Auditor, Spend Optimizer adds another layer of usage information and insights on top of that. So as an example, metering data for applications is not just if you used an application, but how often have you used that application? For how long have you used that application? So Spend Optimizer can tell you if someone simply installed an application and only used it for a few moments versus somebody spending a long time in it. And a really good example of that is you've probably got a number of things like Adobe applications out there, paid for editions like Adobe Professional. But can you be sure that people are really using that in the right way? Or are they only using it for a few seconds to just open up and read something? So could you switch those users over to a free reader version of that application, for example? Well, obviously, Snow gives you that information in terms of how long somebody used it for and how often they used it. So you can start making those decisions. And that's really powerful as well if you've got very expensive applications, things like AutoCAD design software, very expensive per seat. So if people are not using that, there's a lot of wastage there. Now, obviously, Spend Optimizer can help with migration recommendations as well, such as usage and metering data in the cloud, in data centers, things like 365. Snow provides some reporting around highlighting subscriptions within 365, subscriptions that might be migrated to cheaper subscriptions based on the usage patterns of that individual. And Snow also provides the capability to help you rationalize overlapping technologies. So I'm talking about things like where you're using multiple backup or antivirus technologies. By using that application type that I talked about, and I'll show you that later, you can very quickly identify those different types of applications that are in use. And just to quickly go into the next level as well, from how Spend Optimizer does does what it does. These are some of the key areas where Spend Optimizer can really implement the capability. So Snow can cover all the applications, but with specific focus on expensive premium subscriptions. So highlighting, for example, where you've got duplicate users or people using cloud and on-premise licenses. And we also have individual connectors for the likes of Microsoft 365 and Adobe Creative Cloud. So with those, you can, you have a quick and easy way to optimize and see recommendations that the product can give you around those particular products. So I've spoken, quite a lot about optimization, but it's worth, I think, highlighting that Spend Optimizer has a lot of benefits in regards to cost and time savings as well. So for things like your enterprise data center optimization, and that goes across the likes of Microsoft, IBM, Oracle, and SAP. And these are typically really expensive applications. And shortly, I'll also show you something around Windows Server assessments. And for the likes of 365 and Adobe, we provide enhanced optimizations as well as with IBM, Oracle, and SAP. And I mean, SAP is kind of a bit of a special use case, very expensive product, especially within the sort of ERP business objects area. And if you're not aware of it, I mean, those applications individually can cost thousands. So if you've got the ability to be able to align the right licenses to the right users based on what they're using, then you have the potential to make some really substantial savings. And we also have some really good use cases for those, again, on our website. And finally, I'll just point out, actually, the SAP module is sort of a standalone separate module that's not included in Spend Optimizer. Okay, so let's take a look at what this looks like in the platform. So we've got some dashboards here. Obviously, these are really simple. You can build your own dashboards in Snow. Very simple to do. You can add filters to them, create your own. So based on your role, you can create whatever you like. As you can see, I've just built a little one here called an optimization dashboard, and I can just quickly get some insights into what's happening in my estate. So for example, we can see I've got a number of unassigned user licenses here with a cost associated to it. So immediately I can see where there's some leakage potentially from some dormant user licensing. We can also see we've got data center licenses that are currently unused or unassigned. We've got details around Office 365. At a glance, I can see what do my subscriptions look like in terms of costs and which are sitting idle. And likewise, we've got a breakdown of things like our on-premise servers in the virtual environment versus our virtual servers. So Snow has connectors into the likes of Azure and Amazon. And I can drill into this data as well if I want to get a bit more detail around what's really happening in my estate here. And I can drag and drop that. Here's all my Amazon servers that we're running. And we could even associate and look at the costs there that are associated to all the applications on each of those individual cloud servers. So you can see, really simple to navigate around within Snow. We've also got details here around what's my most common application. We have details around the operating systems I have in my environment. So again, if you're looking to do some kind of migration, really quick to understand exactly where they're deployed, so you can target those machines for upgrades, and also understand if there's any other applications on those devices that will also need upgrading. Perhaps they're becoming end of life, for example, or end of support. I talked a bit about Office 365. Let's have a quick look at our 365 connector. You can see at a high level here all my users across my 365 platforms, plans, sorry. And if I scroll down, we've also got details around those individual plans. So this data is a mix, a hybrid of data directly from Microsoft's 365 portal. So it would be from your own individual tenant. You'd be able to see all the subscriptions you have and all the users that you currently can view. So I can quickly look at my total cost across all those plans. And I can also look at individual plans as well. So if I was to look, for example, at my 365 plan, I can quickly understand, okay, what sort of activity are we looking at for our quite costly E3 plan? Here's all my users. And here's all my users with no activity or have not used it perhaps in the last 180 days. Also really helpful if you're trying to monitor a kind of a joiners, movers, leavers process. So what does your assignments of subscriptions look like? You know, are you reharvesting when people leave? Or do you have a large number of subscriptions just sitting in a pot waiting to be used? You know, ideally that number would be as low as possible versus those that are actually in use. And you can also dig in more detail when it comes to optimization, because if I look at the actual application usage sitting around 365, then one of the key benefits of E3 is obviously the Pro Plus suite. So do I have any users that are currently not using that expensive part of it that I could potentially, you know, depending on my contract, potentially move those to a different plan? And to that point, we actually have recommendations out of the box with this connector as well. So I can very quickly go to my report section and then immediately see which users could potentially be moved from E3 to E1 based on their lack of Pro Plus activity. So really powerful. And we do a very similar thing around Creative Cloud. So again, we can import all the entitlement data from the likes of your VIP portal in Creative Cloud. Again, expensive applications, especially if you've got a whole Creative Cloud suite license. And Snow can give insights around that. And one of the things that's important to understand here is that the Adobe Creative Cloud portal doesn't give you actually any usage data for the applications, only the details about what's been checked out or what subscriptions you have. But Snow's agent technology gives you that usage information. So we augment that into this detail. And then we can start to build out these insights, such as, you know, I can very quickly see the savings that I could potentially make based on licenses that are simply unused or subscriptions that are unused. And likewise, I could quickly see, have I got users who could potentially have got licenses for all the applications, but might benefit from just moving them on to one or two applications that they're using. So again, it's all about optimizing that use. So let's dig in a little more around. I talked about the usage data of applications. This is typically where you would come in and look at your list for all your applications. And we can see the 15,000 that I've got installed in here. Obviously, I can quickly filter these, understand exactly which applications I've got the most of, what's my most installed, who's using it. So these are my users. Are they really using it? Here's one I prepared earlier. So if we look at something like project, I can drill into this, and this is really useful when perhaps you're coming up to a contract negotiation, or perhaps there's an annual true up on this product, for example. You know, typically stuff often gets installed and never gets used. So I can quickly come into my view here, look at my computers, and now I can understand, when did we perhaps first discover this application? When was it last used or first used as well? We can see that in a separate report section. How often are people running this application? What's their typical runtime for the application as well? So clearly we've got some people fully utilizing it, but clearly we've got some people not using it at all. So when it comes to kind of renew this contract or true up this contract, actually our number compared to our compliance figure are very different. So again, this is where we can start to optimize these products based on usage. We can also look at potentials for cost savings from a report point of view as well. So we've got out of the box, you know, software cost saving reports for all vendors. Obviously, you can create your own as well. But I can quickly come into here, look at my Adobe, understand exactly which applications I've got across the board, and what's the likely cost, either based on the license cost that we paid for it, or for you know, your RRP cost for that application. So really simple to use in that fashion. I mentioned also the Windows Server reports. Again, another really expensive application. We've got several reports based on the different versions of Windows Server. And here we're giving, you know, an assessment and some recommendations. Obviously, you know, all data center environments are very different, but we can make some clear observations and recommendations. And it's a really useful baseline and a heck of a time saver in times of cost as well, internally, to be able to look through these and understand exactly what are the risks and what are those recommendations. So whether that be, you know, low virtualization of a Windows server, or simply we've deployed Windows data center, not in a data center, so just to a host. So one of the activities that we did at Snow actually was we changed not long ago from WebEx over to Zoom. And in terms of migration data, you can also track that in Snow. So if we looked at something like our WebEx usage, you know, at some point in time, there needs to be a migration from one application to another. You want to be able to track exactly what's happening, and are you tracking correctly? So I can quickly come into here, look at my WebEx through that project, if I look at my users, I can see from this trending chart the downturn of people actually using WebEx within my organization. And likewise, if I look at my Zoom view, we can then see where we started to uptake on the platform and we've continued right through to adoption. Okay, so really easy to do in Snow, but very, very difficult to do without a good tool. You could also think about things like rationalization. So I'll go back to my reports. Again, we've got a standard report that I've just created here. And I talked about the application types that we augment with our data intelligence service against each application. Well, then this gives me the ability, and you can see the application type here listed against each of the applications. So I'm able to filter on instant messaging software, just as an example. And now I can see all the different types of instant messaging I'm using. And I think the other thing to appreciate is obviously that this is not just a rationalization exercise for the sake of it, but obviously the costs involved in running multiple contracts and overheads on support can be quite onerous. So it makes sense to have, everybody using the same technology. And you can quickly do that with Snow. One of the other things I wanted to mention in terms of the reporting was I did talk about end of life. And you can see we've got several reports here, so I could quickly come in and look at my end of life applications. So these might not just be for migration planning, but also perhaps there are security vulnerabilities in some of these applications which are becoming end of life that you quickly want to understand where those are. And so as soon as I can see, I've got 41 installations of this GPG product, I can also quickly understand exactly where those are all installed and on which devices. So finally, I wanted to touch on Oracle. So if you're using any Oracle database products, you're probably all too well aware of the costs involved with Oracle databases, as well as some sort of large potential risks from an audit point of view. Then Snow has capabilities to look in detail at Oracle databases as well. So similarly to what we saw with 365 and with Adobe, we've also got insights and recommendations around where we can again optimize our estate. So have we got user licenses which are currently sitting dormant, not yet been assigned, right through to have we got processor licenses sitting dormant as well. And one of the features I really like is around the recommendations that Snow can provide. So particularly in, if you're using Oracle within what's termed a sort of soft partition environment, and I'm talking things like VMware, Hyper-V environments, then things can get quite costly quite quickly because Oracle essentially don't recognize third-party products in soft partitioned environments. They only recommend their own. So you can see Snow can give you insights and overviews into what's happening in those particularly high-risk environments. So in this case, we've already recognized that we've got some Oracle databases in a soft partitioned environment, and those have been actioned. but 2 new ones have popped up as well. And I can immediately understand where those are, and then I can start investigating any risks that might be associated with an Oracle database Enterprise Edition in a new virtual environment. Okay, so I hope you found that demonstration useful. And we're just going to quickly recap on what we've talked about. So some key takeaways that I'd like to leave you with are, obviously you can identify and migrate away from overlapping applications to save on support overheads, risk, costs. You can effectively manage your license estate with the insight into not only if, but how a license is actually being used. How are you managing your data center optimization? Do you have advanced product use rights? And again, if you have the likes of SAP or Oracle, then there are specific solutions that I've shown to help optimize those types of estates. And you're able to really right-size your agreements based on the application metering data that you can see and whether people are really using those technologies. So in summary, Spend Optimizer, it's doing all the heavy lifting and the analysis on your behalf, and then you're simply giving you the output and the options kind of at your fingertips, providing you with the evidence that you need on which to implement those optimizations, or not, as the case may be. Okay, so that concludes that section. And Robbie, I think we cut over and see if we've got any questions.
Yeah, we have got a couple of questions. Thanks for that, Tony. Really useful overview, and we're definitely seeing in terms of being at the coalface, we're definitely seeing a massive emphasis from organisation on making sure that they're right sizing their use of technology, their expenditure on licensing. You're talking about sort of savings of 20-30% can be achieved for most organizations by doing this kind of thing right. So it's definitely a big priority for a lot of the organizations that we talk to. So a couple of questions in, Tony. If anybody does have any questions that they want they want answered or addressed, please add them into the live event Q&A, little button at the top in Teams. A couple of questions to Tony. First one, are the Microsoft 365 and Adobe Creative Cloud views that you showed included with Spend Optimizer as standard?
So yeah, that's a good question. Those modules actually kind of sit outside of that. Now, the thing to bear in mind is you can kind of mix and match what you want. So what's useful for your organization. If you're only interested in your SaaS and optimizing your SaaS applications, then you can buy just those particular modules. But to be clear, what I showed you today, you would need something like really need adoption tracker right through to Spend Optimizer, and then you can layer on top those optimizations. So if you don't have a big Adobe Creative Cloud estate, for example, there's no point buying that connector, right? So it's about selling the right solution for each organization.
Great, thank you. Next, is it possible to present the snow data in a third-party tool like a service desk or a configuration management database? Is that possible?
Yeah, absolutely. So all the data that you see in Snow could be presented in another platform. So if you've got, we get this question a lot, and a lot of companies now are moving towards not wanting to have data in several solutions and having to flick between two. So if you've got a service desk issue, you report a fault, you want that service desk operative to be able to look at all that data just in one system, right? So in their ticketing system. So everything in Snow can be integrated into a service desk tool. We have direct and sort of certified integrations as well, including for the likes of ServiceNow. And obviously you can put that data likewise into a CMDB. One of the really great things about putting it into a CMDB is you haven't got to go to all the effort of creating CIs or a software catalog, which is a really lengthy job, because all the data is already normalized and in Snow. So you can just push all that directly into those types of platforms.
Okay, great. Thanks, Tony. And then the last one, if anyone does have any more questions, please pop them in the chat. Otherwise, this is the last one we've got at the moment. Is there an ability for customers to categorize applications? So, you know, authorized, unauthorized, approved, or that sort of thing?
Yeah, absolutely. So in Spend Optimizer, you can certainly do that. So we have that kind of out of the box functionality, and that's useful if you're trying to build out perhaps a software catalog, for example. So you want an approved list of applications, and you can categorize all those based on that. And you can also highlight applications and also alert on those sort of unauthorized applications, perhaps something like file sharing applications, or you know, likes of Dropbox and things like that, or security risk applications that you might have in your environment. You can automatically alert on those and put them into an unauthorized bucket of applications for you to either share with your security teams or just to keep an eye on who's you know, using those unwanted applications.
Great, thanks, Tony. Well, I think that's all the questions that we've got. Okay. If anybody does have any questions that they think of subsequently, please just drop us an email. You would have had Luke's email address from the meeting invite, so just feel free to drop us an email and we'll come back to you. Thank you, Tony, very much for your time this afternoon. Hopefully you guys found it useful, and if anybody does want any more information on Spend Optimizer or a customized demo, more detailed demo, please drop Luke an email after the call today, and we'll get that arranged for you. So thank you all very much, and have a nice afternoon.
Thanks. Brilliant. Thanks, Robbie.